10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to Getting Started in Design. My name is Gerry Scullion and I'm a service design trainer and practitioner based in Dublin City, Ireland. I caught up with Zoë Murray recently, a UX researcher in the BBC. Now, I first met Zoë in Sydney many years ago in a previous life where Zoë was a recruiter and managed to make the successful transition across into the world of UX. Zoe's so open about her mindset in this episode and at the time of trying to break into the industry, what obstacles she faced and how she got started into her new world of a career in design. This episode is a really great one for anyone currently thinking about making that move, and it allows you to get an extra perspective on how to do it and what works so well for Zoë. So let's get straight into the episode. Zoë Murray, a very warm welcome to Getting Started in Design.
Thanks, Gerry.
I'm delighted to have you here, Zoë. I've actually known you for a number of years as we're sitting down here in Dublin. We met 2011, 2012, probably back in Sydney. And it's really interesting today to meet you because we're going to find out a little bit about what you do in your current role at the BBC, but we're interested to see your career arc and how you've got to where you got to today. So Zoë, warm welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Oh, thanks, Gerry. So I'm a design researcher for BBC in Manchester. I work in BBC Sport and Live platforms, so any live platform that is showing content through the BBC, so it could be working with the news team as well. Yeah,
I'm a big user of the BBC Sport app.
Oh, good to hear.
Saturday afternoon, I'm always refreshing that page to see how Liverpool are getting on. So Zoë, when we met, it's really interesting because when we met initially, you were as a recruiter.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people listening to this podcast and specifically are interested in getting into design.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to see, that thought process. What year was it you moved into UX design?
So it was 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
And we actually had a conversation around 2015, wasn't it, around that time?
Yeah.
I think it was. And you'd expressed a big interest in UX design, and I wanted to talk through a little bit more about the conversations you were having with your employer at that stage. They hired you as a recruiter, and what were you recruiting in?
So I was recruiting in design, so I worked with a lady that very kindly she recommended that I spoke to people who were like head of design level in Sydney, just to build up kind of a network and library of knowledge about the area.
Yeah.
And as I was working in that industry and helping people find jobs in it, I was really interested in it myself. But I had a feeling that I'd lean more on the research side. I had always been interested in design. My dad owned his own graphic design business when I was younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me it was more on the research side. So I was basically speaking to people, helping them find jobs in design, research and hands-on design. And I did a course outside of work just to learn a bit more about it.
And what course was that?
So that was the General Assembly. It was the part-time UX course.
In Sydney?
So I'd learnt about it because I was going in there as a mentor for people that were doing the course originally while I was recruiting.
So while you were recruiting, you were a mentor for those people about how to get a job in design, was
exactly.
it? Jesus, this is perfect. We're going to be talking about this, So you were mentoring people where you actually wanted to be as well. You were like looking at those people going, I'd love to do this.
Yeah. So it was a double-edged sword for me, but it made it more interesting. It made me more keen to get into it myself.
Yeah.
After I'd finished work, I'd go in there in the evenings and then help people with their portfolio that were moving from other industries into design.
Yeah. So what kind of problems did you have at that stage? Or what kind of questions did you have, should I say, when you were a recruiter trying to get into UX design? How did you rationalize that thought process and moving into that new world?
So I knew originally that I was making good money in recruitment, But I knew that I'd have to kind of take a step back to train as a junior, like in design. So I was always like aware of that. And then because of the visa that I was on, I was waiting for my permanent residency of Australia to come through.
Right.
And I think because my employer, when I was a recruiter, they could pretty much tell that I was really, really interested in design. And there was jokes about, oh, as soon as you get your visa, you'll be off, won't you?
Yeah.
You know. And because I was doing that course outside of work as well, there was a few jokes from the lads at work. Like I'd finish work and then they'd go, "Oh, she's off now. She's off to do a prototyping. See you later."
And you'd already bought your black rimmed glasses at that stage. And
that's it.
So you were starting to get more into general assembly, and you were looking to move across to do the course.
Yeah.
And what did you learn in the course?
So it was a part-time course for, I think it was either 6 or 8 weeks now. But you do everything from like finding out how to run research, how to different prototyping tools, and I could tell at this point. So I did mine about my project was about redesigning the application process for permanent residency.
Yeah.
Because I've found that such a difficult thing to do online. But it was quite a tricky one. So I was also keen to do something that was outside of recruitment. Because I'll never forget that first day of the course instructor was asking what kind of backgrounds did we all come from. And most people were like visual design or maybe project management, business analysts. And I remember I was the only one that hadn't put my hand up for whatever it was, like my industry that I'd come from. And then the course instructor was like, "So what kind of background do you have?" And I said, "Well, I recruit in UX." And then I felt like a pin drop in silence, and then I just had to be like, "I'm not trying to place you all. Like, I do want to learn this as well." And
it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I actually think recruiters are actually probably one of the best placed to get into UX because they understand the business side of design as well. So they're looking at what people are looking to get out of the role. Yeah. Whereas sometimes if you move from like say graphic design into UX, you're kind of only restricted to that level of thinking. So it was probably a really good transition for you to make.
It was really helpful with the interviewing side of things and having to have empathy for people.
You were nailing your interviews, were you?
Yeah, no.
So talk to me about you did the course and you were still in your role as a recruiter. What happened next?
So yeah, I did that, and it was quite soon after I'd got my residency through.
2 o'clock, 4 o'clock you resigned. 9 o'clock the next day, your first interview, set up by you in your previous job.
It wasn't that thought out. It worked out, put it that way. I felt lucky. So I did the project. I was happy with the grade I got, and then as soon as that was up, I had a friend that worked at Wilson Fletcher, the service design company, and he recommended that I went and spoke to them, and they were doing a project about redesigning export loan processes for the government. And this was it was an online application that they wanted to redesign, and my role was insights analyst for that project. So I was there for 3 months at Wilson Fletcher on a contract. Yeah, and then I moved to another company after that, and then it was the person who I knew as a candidate. I was representing him for a role years ago, and he was UX manager, like research manager level, and he took me on as a junior, which I was really grateful for. Yeah.
So what kind of questions did you get at that first interview for Wilson Fletcher in Sydney? You know, people might have been a little bit skeptical about moving from career to career, and that's an obstacle for some people. So I'm keen to see what kind of questions you got and how you got around those.
It was very much trying to understand what I knew about UX versus being able to recruit for UX. So it was a case of me walking through that project of what I'd done, and then I was working as well work for a startup as well outside of work when I was still at Mitchell Lake recruiting. So I was able to talk about that, and then also like the general assembly work. it was more about showing the passion to want to get into it, I guess. Yeah.
So you were working when you were in that first job as a recruiter. You were also doing a side project in UX, which is really interesting because it's kind of like when we were speaking earlier, you were lowering the risk. Yeah. Like you tested it. You almost got a prototype of your new career.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
You were trying to validate if that was something you were interested in. I guess I'm filling in your own words here. Like, but you know, what did you get out of having that side project, and how did you juggle the two roles?
So I was really grateful. It was a man I knew from Sydney called Mike Fagali, and he had his own consultancy called Xperity, and it was doing work for a travel startup, and my role was more in the research side again there, doing a bit of usability testing, and so I knew that I was really grateful for these people to give me a chance to do this sort of work, and it also helped me then see, could I actually do this, and like is research the right area for me rather than actually doing the more the UI side of things. It just made me more interested to just get going and try and get a more permanent sort of role. Yeah.
It built the hunger.
Yeah, exactly.
So looking back at that period, and I keep on going back to that period because I think that's the area of interest for a lot of people. Like moving from one career to another career is really difficult for some people to do, and also to get around successfully. And you managed to do it really successful because you're now in the BBC, and I know you're loving your job over there. So what I'm interested in is what would make that transition easier, and what did you need to make that transition better?
Yeah, I suppose I'd been a bit daring with moving to Sydney in the first place, so I was quite open to change. I was a paralegal in the UK before I moved to Sydney. Like, that was a completely different area of work as well. So I thought, there's nothing to lose really. Just give it a good go. It was about making sure that I'd set myself up enough money to, get
the transition.
to get by for that kind of change. And then, I knew that I wanted to stay in Sydney for a while at that point. I'd got my residency, and because I got to know quite a few people in the industry through recruitment, I felt
supported.
Really fortunate that people were willing to take me on in a new sort of role. Yeah.
So you accepted the role at Wilson Fletcher, and you moved on to another role shortly after that, a couple of months later. Talk to me about what you learned in that role.
At Tabcorp. So I learned a lot about usability testing. I was the sole researcher working with 9 designers, and that was looking at redesigns for the website and the app. And then that was iOS and Android. And so I was doing anywhere between 7 to 10 usability tests a week, and they were an hour long each.
You're cutting your teeth.
Yeah. And that was doing all the discussion guides, doing the actual testing, and then the analysis and reporting back and presenting that back to products. So it was great experience to really get going and have to move quite quickly on stuff as well. Yeah.
And then you moved on to another role, and you eventually went back to the UK, which again is another big shift, a big leap.
Yeah.
And you've ended up now at the BBC team. Yeah. So tell us about your role at BBC and what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'm design researcher for BBC Sport and Live, as I mentioned earlier. So there's 10 designers in the team, in the UX team in sport, and I work with them and work across. There's 4 different product teams, so they each have their own product owner. So that would be looking at BBC Sport apps, one team, the sport website. There's Live, which is another team, and then there's one called Sports Web Data, and they do all of the scores and fixtures tables for all the sports.
So talk to me about what it looks like on a day-to-day basis for people who are looking to get in to see what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that the role is quite varied in the BBC. So I'd say we've got a really good research community in the BBC. there's about 19 or 20 of us researchers in Manchester and London. So
Right.
on a Monday we have a research studio day. So in the morning we sit together in Manchester, and then the other guys do in London. We have a team meeting where we all speak about what research we're focused on. Because if we're trying to design a holistic experience for users of BBC, we want them to still feel like they're having a similar experience, whether they're watching something on the Sport app or whether they're listening to something on BBC Sounds. So we have to collaborate together and see where there's areas of crossover on the research that we're doing.
Yeah.
Which is always great to see what everyone's up to. And sometimes if I'm doing something with like the news team for live, I'll go to London and work with the team there. Then on, say, middle of the week, it depends. Usually I have anywhere between like 8 to 10 projects on at once. So because I'm the only researcher in a team that's got quite a few designers in, it's great that they're also interested in and able to do some of the research with me. Because I think before I joined there was a period for a few months where they had no researcher, so they did some of the actual testing as well. When I joined, I did a bit of I'd prepared some sort of materials to help kind of give some tips on how to run like self-serve research methods, so that if I'm working on something that's a bit more strategic that needs like a lot of thinking, from the get-go, then that frees up my time a bit. Yeah.
So knowing what you know now versus what you thought you knew then, talk to me about that thought process. Like, what do you wish you knew back in 2015 when you made the leap? Like, has there been that much of a difference in what you thought the role was going to be as a UXer?
Anyone that's thinking of doing it, it's worth just trying to do your research into what area you want to get into in design, so that you can really focus on that rather than thinking, I just need a job in design. Like, know what you're stronger at. Like I knew that if I was to try and take a job and then be told to do a lot of prototyping, that wouldn't be like my area of like strength. Yeah, exactly. I can do the basics, but that wouldn't be something that I would be able to add much value in. And I think anyone that's got skills that are relevant from the role that they're moving from, then make the best of that.
To carry that forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember when I was a recruiter, I placed a lady who was a business analyst into UX, and she was doing a bit of the prototyping anyway, and it was a great move for her, and she's really enjoying being in UX now.
Yeah. So what would you say to like one of your friends, sisters or brothers who came to you and they just finished school or something, and they're like, your career and your role sounds really interesting as a UX researcher? What advice would you give them?
Well, usually I would send loads of like reading material to help them sort of...
Or podcasts.
Yeah, there you go, or podcasts. To help educate them. And then, so for example, now I mentor two uni students outside of work. One guy is at Manchester Uni, and he's doing a PhD in psychology. Like he's a really clever guy, and I meet with him once a month, and I help him with his portfolio and just talk to him about what companies I know are doing interesting work, and if he wants to try and speak to people, I might be able to recommend just informal coffees or whatnot. He's been into BBC Sport and presented to some of our team. So
that's very good of you.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah.
I'm sure you appreciate it. So mentorship is one that keeps on coming up whenever I've done any sort of early stage research for these podcasts. When we were speaking there earlier, there seems to be a bit of a lack of mentorship in the early days. Is that true?
So it would have been really helpful, but I think through going to networking events, you get to know a variety of different people, and then you can sort of form your own opinion on what you're learning from different people, rather than just staying with, say, one same person that you might come to rely on a bit. I think there's definitely benefits to having a mentor. Like my previous colleague in recruitment, she was a mentor to me because Emma Jones, so she was amazing because she gave me a list of names of people to speak to about design, and so meeting them in the early days was really good because then I'd speak to them once I had transitioned into design, and then it was a case of, oh, Zoe's actually doing this. And
yeah, that was me.
Yeah, that was you.
I remember going, oh, she's got a job. Okay, cool. Oh, she's got another job. Cool. And then oh, she's over in England. Oh, cool. Oh, she was at BBC. Wow, this is great. And I was like championing you from afar. Like I was delighted to see that. Like, you know, but I'm really interested in how that process could be made better and easier for people looking to get into design, I guess. Do you have any thoughts on that, and how could we make it a little bit more accessible to people?
So I think it depends. There are a lot of great courses in the unis in the UK now. Like I sometimes speak at Manchester Metropolitan University. There's I'm going in there in a couple of months to talk about usability testing, and I'd also been into Preston University a few months ago talking about design thinking. So I think there are some really good courses now that are focused on that, more so than I knew in Sydney anyway. That seemed a case of more like external courses where you'd do like the General Assembly or Academy XI, and they were like paid for courses, whereas it seems like there is a lot more kind of going on in the unis right now. And then in terms of the actual design scene in Manchester is good. I know it is definitely good in London, and it's great seeing what it's like here in Dublin this weekend. But yeah, I think these sort of community events, where there's one called Real UX, which is really good in Manchester. It's just about having a chat with people really, and seeing and knowing that people come from different backgrounds, and really like it's all about if you've got transferable skills that are going to be relevant. Yeah, you may have to take a cut from your current pay if you especially if you're at a more senior level in whatever you do. You've got to be open to the fact that you're starting off.
Yeah. How do you stay on top of your skills as a UX researcher and a UX designer? Yeah,
so I do a lot of I go to events. I do quite a lot of reading, listen to podcasts. You know the one I'm thinking about. And then I would say like that was a big draw for me joining the BBC, was that research community, because where I was like previous to that, I was working as a sole researcher. So when I was at booking.com in Manchester before I joined the BBC, there were a few researchers in the business, but wasn't working that closely as say we are in the BBC. And so just learning from people that are more senior than I am is always really helpful. And then also people that are, I try and learn as much as I can about design process, because even though I'm involved in it heavily, I'm not actually hands-on myself with the design. So I, like, for example, when it comes to doing presentations, I always laugh, like, creating decks is like I do it, but I'm always like, oh guys, how can I make this look better? Come on, I'm wasting about an hour here trying to move this column up left on the.
How do you do it? Yeah. And that's a big thing, like for anyone getting into design, or even just people in research. You don't have to be great visual designers, or
no.
It's a lot about the process and having the craft and understanding how to interview people. It is a craft at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Zoe, we're coming to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
If people wanted to reach out to you, how might they do that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on LinkedIn, so it's just Zoë Murray.
I'll throw a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Yeah, great.
So people can reach out to you if they've got any questions. Zoe, thanks so much for your time.
No, thanks a lot, Gerry. It's been great to see you and great to be here.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you'd like to be part of the conversation or community, hop on over to thisishcd.com, where you can join the Slack community and help shape future episodes and connect with other designers around the world, or join the HCD newsletter where you can win books and get updates. Subscribe to our content on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and listen to any of our other podcasts, such as Getting Started in Design, Bringing Design Closer with myself, Gerry Scullion, or Power of 10 with Andy Pillane, or Decoding Culture with Dr. John Curran,
Prod Pod with Adrian Tan, and Ethnopod with Jay Hasbrook. Thanks for listening and see you next time.